Hi guys, this is Connie, back for some more Connie Reads White Fragility. I've had some technical difficulties, and so chapter 2 is probably going to be in at least 3 parts because I don't have my editing capabilities easily accessible. So without further ado, let's get into as much of chapter 2 as we possibly can, and you will see the next one linked below once it's available. Chapter 2, Racism and White Supremacy. There's 2 big paragraphs. Many of us have been taught to believe that there are distinct biological and genetic differences between races. This biology accounts for visual differences such as skin color, hair texture, and eye shape, and traits that we believe we see such as sexuality, athleticism, or mathematical ability. The idea of race as a biological construct makes it easy to believe that many of the divisions we see in society are natural, but race, like gender, is socially constructed. Excuse me. The differences we see with our eyes, differences such as hair texture and eye color, are superficial and emerge as adaptations to geography. Under the skin, there is no true biological race. The external characteristics that we use to define race are unreliable indicators of genetic variation between any two people. However, the belief that race and the differences associated with it are biological is deep-seated. To challenge the belief in a race as biology, we need to understand the social and economic investments that drove science to organize society and its resources along racial lines, and why this organization is so enduring. Here's the first section. This is what I'm going to call Chapter 2A, titled Social Construction of Race in the United States. Freedom and equality, regardless of religion or class status, were radical new ideas when the United States was formed. At the same time, the U.S. economy was based on the abduction and enslavement of African people, the displacement and genocide of indigenous people, and the annexation of Mexican lands. Further, the colonizers who came here, uh, the colonizers who came were not free of their own cultural conditioning. They brought with them deeply internalized patterns of domination and submission. The tension between the noble ideology of equality and the cruel reality of genocide, enslavement, and colonization had to be reconciled. Thomas Jefferson, parentheses, who himself owned hundreds of enslaved people, and others turned to science. Jefferson suggested that there were natural differences between the races and asked scientists to find them. If science could prove that black people were naturally and inherently inferior, in parentheses, he saw indigenous people as culturally deficient, a shortcoming that could be remedied. There would be no contradiction between our professional ideas and our actual practices. There were, of course, enormous economic interest in justifying enslavement and colonization. Race science was driven by these social and economic interests, which came to establish cultural norms and legal rulings that legitimized racism and the privileged status of those defined as white. Drawing on the work of Europeans before them, American scientists began searching for the answer to the perceived inferiority of non-Anglo groups. Illustrating the power of our questions to shape the knowledge we validate, these scientists didn't ask, are blacks and others inferior? They asked, why are blacks and others inferior? In less than a century, Jefferson's suggestion of racial difference became commonly accepted science fact. The idea of racial inferiority was created to justify unequal treatment. Belief in racial inferiority is not what triggered unequal treatment, nor was fear of difference. As Ta-Nehisi Coates states, quote, but race is the child of racism, not the father, unquote. He means that first we exploited people for their resources, not according to how they looked. Exploitation came first, and then the ideology of unequal races to justify this exploitation followed. Similarly, historian Ibram Kendi, in his National Book Award-winning work Stamped from the Beginning, explains the beneficiaries of slavery, segregation, and mass incarceration have produced racist ideas of black people being best suited for or deserving of the confines of slavery, segregation, or the jail cell. Consumers of these racist ideas have been led to believe there is something wrong with black people and not the policies that have enslaved, oppressed, and confined so many black people. Kendi goes on to argue that if we truly believe that all humans are equal, then disparity in condition can only be the result of systemic discrimination. Ooh, disparity in condition can only be the. Ooh, I just got that. And we're on to the next section. Oh, there's several other. Oh my goodness, this chapter just goes on and on and on. So this is chapter 2A. Be careful with that and enjoy, please and thank you. I'll put B and C together because B is a pretty short one.